As a WordPress developer, you need to install WordPress on localhost for you to develop your themes and plugins. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use the localhost to install WordPress for development. I'm going to guide you on how to choose a good localhost environment for your WordPress site and how to install WordPress on localhost. Let's get started. Welcome back to this tutorial on how to install WordPress on your local server. A quick summary of what I'm going to be covering in this tutorial on how to install WordPress on localhost. I'm going to show you how to install the localhost environment. In this case, I'm going to use Windows. I'm going to share the other localhost servers that you can use for your WordPress or PHP development. I'm also going to show you how to create your database as well as how to install WordPress in a step-by-step process. So on my screen here, you see the steps you're going to take. The first step is going to be to download and install the local server. After we install the local server, we're going to run it and have a quick overview on how everything works. We are then going to create a database for our WordPress installation. Then we'll go ahead and download WordPress. Then put the documents on the local host site folder where the site is going to live. Then we are going to install WordPress or run the installation in a step-by-step. So to begin, we navigate to where we download our local host environment. XAMPP is one of the best localhost environments for Windows. Alternatively, you can try Laragon, which these days I find to be very easy to use and it's way better. Alternatively, you can have WAMP server. These three local host development environments makes it easier for you to develop your WordPress sites and plugins as well as any WordPress development that you want to undertake. Another localhost environment you might consider is LocalWP, but the most popular one is going to be XAMPP. It simply comes with the package for Linux, MySQL database, and PHP, and of course the Apache server. So for Windows, XAMPP can be the best option, as well as Laragon. If you want to explore further, you can try to work with something like LocalWP or WAMP server. For the case of this tutorial, I'm going to use my favorite, which is XAMPP, for your local WordPress installation. So on XAMPP page, you click on download, and once it has completed the download, you can run the file, begin your installation. Once the file is downloaded, you should have executable file. You should locate the downloaded executable file and click on it to begin the installation process for your local hosting environment. So for XAMPP, once you click on that, you will see this console to install the software. So you click on next. Then you are supposed to select the packages that are supposed to run on your local host environment. So you ensure you have MySQL, which provides us the database software. phpMyAdmin is the console that helps us manage our database. And of course, PHP by default should be available. So you click on next. On this step for the installation folder, we are looking for where to install. So you select the drive where the localhost server should be installed. So for this case, I'm going to install it in drive C on XAMPP folder. I click on next, then you select the language using this drop down. Then you click on next, then you finish your XAMPP installation. Once it's successfully installed, you should locate it in your folder of installation. In this case, it's going to have the default files that are associated with this kind of localhost installation. It's good to locate it and identify where you find the root website files. In this case, for XAMPP, it's located in a folder called htdocs. If you are familiar with web hosting, that folder is similar with the public_HTML folder in a hosting environment. So for this other local host environment, we are not going to work with them. We are going to pay attention to how to install it on Laragon and how you do it on XAMPP. So for Mac users, MAMP will work in a similar manner with XAMPP. So once you have this installed, you need to navigate to the folder where the site is going to be set up. So in your C drive, you look for XAMPP, then you look for WP, the htdocs folder. This folder is a folder that contains the files for your localhost website. So in this case, we are going to be installing it on this server, localhost server for XAMPP, as well as we are going to try and do it for Laragon. Once the XAMPP installation is completed, you should comfortably navigate to this folder where you installed during the installation process, where you selected as the installation folder. So you can see it has some existing content, but we are going to delete this content after we load this on our browser. So to begin using our local server, we need to run it first. So we can search for XAMPP control panel. You click on that. Then this console comes up. It gives you a detailed guide on the services that are going to be running in our localhost environment. So in this case, we have the server, Apache. We have MySQL, FileZilla, which is our client host transfer file protocol. Then these others, we can ignore them for now. So for us to begin our installation of WordPress or to work with PHP on the local host, we need to run the server by clicking that button. Then we need to have our database running. As you can see, there are ports that are allocated to the local host. And for the server, it's usually, in most cases, it's going to be by default port 80 and 443. And for MySQL, it's going to be using that 606 port. Sometimes once you install this on your local Windows machine, you might have a problem with the ports. So you need to look for other applications that are going to be using these ports, or you create additional ports and configure your environment to use that custom port. For this case, our server is running well, and that's the default way it's supposed to be. So once we figure out the server is running, we bring up the browser so that we can begin our installation process. So we first of all close this. We don't need this. But for this Laragon, we're going to revisit it. So we need it. So you open a new tab on your browser and type localhost. Once you type localhost, you can see the content that is displayed here is the content in the default folder of your installation. So this is the content that is displayed in this folder for the localhost. An alternative way to access your localhost is using the code 127.0.0.1. It's the same as typing localhost on your browser. So this server is ready for us to begin the installation process. So we simply delete everything that is existing in the folder, in the installation folder. For now, we don't need this. So we can clear this, and once we delete it and refresh here, we have nothing on the main folder. It's the same as just typing localhost. So we can introduce a file here, a simple HTML file, to just test if our server is working well. So we can create a simple HTML file to just test our server. So we begin by typing HTML. We close this tag. Then we just write. Then we are going to save this folder htdocs. Then you can give it the name index.html. So once we visit the browser, we should see this displayed on the browser. So we refresh this, and as you can see, our localhost has been successfully set up. So the next step is to install WordPress on XAMPP on that particular folder. Sometimes when you run multiple WordPress applications, you may be required, or like it would make sense for you to create different folders, like maybe WP or test environment. Maybe you can say one, then maybe you can create another one, dev environment. One, you can do it multiple times. For in this case, we just want to delete this because it was just for test purposes. So you can install different WordPress installation within this folder, because like you have this folder can take a WordPress, and you can create as many as possible, as possibly you can. But for the sake of this tutorial, we are going to just install it directly. So we delete these folders. So the next step is to begin our WordPress installation. So since our root folder is empty, we now need to download WordPress. So you just search on your browser, WordPress download. So you want to download the latest version of WordPress. So you navigate to this URL, wordpress.org/download. Then for this tutorial, up to this point, we have WordPress 6.11. So we click on download, and it downloads this WordPress version. So we are going to copy these WordPress files into the folder here, then extract them. So we are going to bring the WordPress files here. We need to understand, before we begin this process, you need to understand that WordPress connects with the database through a specific file that's called WP wp-config.php. So that file exists in the WordPress installation, and it connects to the database. So for our steps of WordPress installation, we are going to have this download placed in the localhost folder. Then we create a database, then connect the database to the WordPress application. So that's how it works. So we copy our folder here that we downloaded, then we extract it so that we can have it in our folder. Once you extract it, we delete this because we no longer need this. Then we need to copy this to the root folder, the contents for the downloaded WordPress package into this root folder. Once we copy that, this folder is empty, so we simply want to delete this folder. So we have our WordPress files inside this folder, htdocs in XAMPP. So in this case, once we go back to our browser and refresh this page, we should comfortably see the WordPress files here, the installation console. So up to that point, what we need is the database, so that we can connect the database to this application. So we can close this, we don't need that. So we begin creating our database by navigating to this URL, localhost/phpMyAdmin. That gives us access to the MySQL database in our localhost. So you create the WordPress database by clicking on this database icon. Then we give this database a name. Maybe we call it WP DB1, or we can call it DB1, or maybe we do something like tutorial. WP tutorial would be a better name to call our database. So you remember to place these details for the database in a specific place where you can check them later, because we are going to need them. So in this case, this is the database name. Then we need to create the database. We need the database user. In this case, we can call him Joe. Then maybe we need the database password. The database password, maybe we can generate a password. We're going to generate a password so that it's easier. So once you put the name here, you click on create, and we have successfully created the database here. So we need to have a user for this database. Once we have created our database, we now need to create the user, the database user. So in this case, we select our database. Then we want to ensure we have specific users that can access this database. So if you look at the first page on your databases, you'll see user accounts. So once you click on user accounts, you can create new users here. So in this case, you can use this button here, add new account. Then we say Joe. Then for the host, we select local. Then we can generate a password. In this case, we can generate a password. So this is our password. So you ensure you put your password right. Then this should be Joe. Then for this particular user to have access to the database and for it to work, we need to grant them all the privileges by checking this grant all the privileges. So we've created the database. We have created a user, and we have granted them all the privileges. So those are the three important steps you need to take when you're creating a WordPress database. You need to create a database first, create a user, set the user settings like he should have a name, a password, and grant them all the privileges. Once you're done with that, you click on go. Now we have a user created that has access to our database. So once we have these details, we are ready to begin installing our WordPress application. So we navigate back to this page, localhost, and we should see the installation console for WordPress. We select the language to be English. Then we click on continue. So here we are supposed to match the details. The details we saved in our notepad here are supposed to match the details required to install the WordPress. So for the WordPress application to be installed, it needs a database name, it needs a username, it needs a password. The database host, in this case, it's local, and the table prefix, which by default is WP underscore. So back here, we run the installation by clicking on that button. Then we copy our database name here. Then we put in our name, our database user name. Then we copy the database password. Then this should be localhost. The database host should be local because it means it's relative to the current server. It's not a remote. So it's localhost even when you are installing this on a web hosting environment. This will be localhost since it's relative to the existing server. So this prefix should be WP underscore. Then we click on submit to begin our WordPress installation. If you get to this particular point, everything is ready to go and your WordPress application is ready to get installed. You click on run the installation. Then we give it a name. We give our site a name like maybe WP Dev Tutorials. Then we say we give it Joe, maybe N. Then we can generate a password. Then we can place an email address. You can just put the email there. We can always change this in the database. Then for this one, you can leave it the way it is. Then you run the installation. So first, on this screen, you need to pay attention to the site title. It's going to be your corresponding site title. This is the name you're going to use. Then we have the password here. So we can copy these WordPress details. So we copy WordPress installation, WordPress installation. So this is the username for our WordPress site. Then this is the password. So these are what we're going to use to log in our WordPress once it's completed. So you allow it to run. You can place the password there and the username, and we can save it for this computer. And we have successfully installed our first WordPress installation on the local host. So this is the same process you should undertake if you're installing it on this local host on Radagon. There are reasons why I like this local host environment. It's fast and easy. If you'd like to learn more on how you can install on this, or maybe you want to see a video on how to install it, I can consider doing a step-by-step installation process on Radagon as well. So I hope this answers the questions on how to install your WordPress application on localhost. So back to our summary, we downloaded the software, we installed this software on our local host, then we downloaded WordPress, created a database, followed the installation console, and installed WordPress on your local host. So the terms you should remember when you are installing WordPress on localhost, there is XAMPP, which is the cross-platform localhost environment that includes Apache server, MySQL, PHP, and it's the most popular way to install WordPress on localhost. This local by flywheel, I said it's a tool you can also test if you want to explore other options. If for some reason XAMPP or WAMP does not work on your computer, you can try to use this. And the process is straightforward and it's going to be similar to what we just undertook. WAMP is also another localhost environment, and Radagon is one of the latest easy-to-use localhost environments that you can consider to use for your WordPress installation. That's it for now, and thank you for your time.
Finally, we have installed WordPress on localhost. I hope you can now begin your journey of WordPress development and you found this content useful. If you did, kindly give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you.